I'm Richard Sher, and it's time to square off. This is our second of three election specials. Here's your panel. Republican Committeewoman Nicolee Ambrose, former Baltimore Mayor Sheila Dixon, Square Off's resident attorney Chris Kennedy, and America's #1 debate specialist, Professor Rick Vatz. And down the stretch they come. Here they are. Democrat Kamala Harris, former Republican President Donald Trump. So many polls, they could make your ballots spin. This past Sunday, former President Trump filled Madison Square Garden in New York. An estimated overflow crowd of more than 20,000 supporters, and thousands were turned away. Trump calling Harris, quote, a train wreck who has destroyed everything in her path. Nicolee, let's start with you.
So in looking at this election, I think I need to quote James Carville from the 1990s. It's the economy, stupid. Kamala Harris can tell people all day long that the economy is improving and that she's from a middle-class family. But when people have difficulty paying the bill, checking out of the grocery store, that's a pain they are sick of feeling and do not want to feel anymore. So I think when you look at the right track, wrong track numbers, combined with Kamala Harris's inability to articulate any policy successes, I think this is going to be a pretty decisive election next week.
Chris Kennedy.
Yeah, I think there's 5 words that will sum up this presidential election, and those are women voters will save democracy. I think that Kamala Harris is going to prevail. I think that a sign of that is the early voting, huge turnout of women across the country voting. I'll say this, I think we can all agree on this. The weather's supposed to be great on Tuesday, except for Eastern Michigan and Western Pennsylvania. All the 7 battleground states are going to have good weather. And that's what really we're talking about, those 7 states.
Professor Vatz.
Well, I think that this election is going to go Trump's way. This is not because I particularly like Trump. I don't like him very much, but I like him better than Kamala Harris. This is like 1980 when Ronald Reagan ran for president against Jimmy Carter, and people thought, I'm ready to take a chance. And I think people don't want to live in this economy for another 4 years with this violence and this situation.
Rick, your mic is muffled. Is it under your tie? Where's your microphone?
My microphone is in the
toilet.
Richard, he's fine. I'm getting him fine.
Oh, he's muddy in my place. All right.
A little more muffled than usual. I agree.
Hold on. Let's hear from Mayor Dixon.
I'm ready for this election to be over, to be honest with you. I think that the rhetoric on all sides, I think the commercials, I just think that people, I believe and I pray that Harris wins, that Vice President Harris wins, because I think that we're going to be a destructive country if Trump wins. But I'll be honest with you, when people ask me, I'm really not clear where this is going to go. Of course, women are getting out to vote. Democrats are voting in record numbers as well as Republicans in this early voting. But I'll be honest with you, the way I voted this time, I did my mail-in ballot. In some cases, I wrote in names. But I'm just really concerned and worried. I think that the issues that need to be focused on have not been on both sides. And for me, and I think this is probably, I should have kind of taken that debate prep when I ran, because I believe in focusing on the issues, how you're going to make the changes, and when are we going to see it, and what's the time frame.
Trump's rally included an appearance, as many of you know, of comedian Tony Hinchcliffe. Now, he spewed insults at Blacks, Jews, Latinos, NFL superstar Tom Brady, even the late George Floyd. Hinchcliffe described Puerto Rico as a floating island of garbage. On Wednesday, President Biden, during a fundraising Zoom call, said, quote, "The only garbage I see floating out there is his supporters," speaking about Trump. Biden later saying that the garbage remark was intended to describe only the hateful rhetoric spewed by the comedian during Trump's Madison Square rally. Jump in, anybody.
Well, I think that Donald Trump puts his foot into it sometimes, and his people put his foot in it sometimes. But nobody beats Joe Biden in stepping on Kamala Harris's message, and so she doesn't know what to do. So she kind of says, "Well, it doesn't go for me. Anybody who criticizes supporters of a particular candidate." So all these little errors and solecisms, they shouldn't have much and won't have much to do, I think, with the election, in which people will focus on the economy, the violence, Israel, and the inflation. That's what I think people are going to focus on.
All right.
Well, I think the comedian was inappropriate. I think he was out of line. I think he shouldn't even been a part of anybody's rally. I think that his insulting comments to Blacks, Hispanics, Latinos across the board, and that Trump is going to suffer as a consequence of this horrible comedian.
Sheila, let me ask you one question, then we'll go to Chris. When you wrote in names, did you spell my last name correctly?
Yes, I did, Richard.
Thank you, my dear.
I wrote in your name for one of the judges, since we can't get any background on the judges and what their records are.
All right.
You know, I really went to town on the judges.
Go ahead, Chris.
Mayor, hold on. Did it say
Nicolee.
Richard Sher, living legend? That's just my question.
Let's talk about me.
No, Square. Richard said Square, Channel 13.
That was back in the day. Chris.
Richard, well played, Richard. Well played. And Sheila, you can call me anytime you want about the judges. I'll be happy to tell you all about them. But listen,
one.
Yeah.
Go
You know, the rhetoric is what it is. I mean, if Donald Trump wants to close his campaign by calling for the public execution of Liz Cheney and a firing squad like he did yesterday, Tucker Carlson was dumbfounded. It's the first time I've seen Tucker Carlson not know what to say. If that's how he wants to close his campaign, hey, more power to him. But, you know, we have something to describe that in the law. It's called the doctrine of he's nuts. All right. But let me just take a quick minute and talk about the economic issues.
Okay.
There are 9 reasons why the economy is doing well and would continue to do better under Harris versus Trump. There is inflation down, wages up, 230 new jobs this month. Americans have $4,000 a year more disposable income now than in 2019 with Trump. There's strong GDP, strong consumer spending, strong consumer income, wages exceeding inflation, which is big, and an increase in immigration, which I know is a volatile issue, but the increase in immigration has added to the work shortage problem and increased the elimination of supply chain problems.
All right, let me go to Nicolee, please.
Okay, so Kamala Harris's campaign is George Orwell's 1984, right? Where the character was told 2 + 2 = 5. And actually, there are enough Americans, fortunately, that know 2 + 2 still equals 4. This is really basic. What Americans say repeatedly in poll after poll after poll is the economy is not good. The direction of the country is wrong by over 70%. And I also really care about our out of control southern border and all these violent criminal illegals pouring over the border, not being stopped by these radical blue leftist cities who won't turn over violent criminal illegals to ICE to be deported. And then you add on top of it, you know, people who came here and did things the legal way just feel like they're being punished and being treated worse than people who break our country's laws. So all of this, so much of this to me is just about fairness and people being wanting to be left alone to make their own way in the world and not have the government stop them and interfere with their livelihood and their success every step of the way.
I don't believe that there is anybody who feels that they are en masse better off than they were 4 years ago. And I think in Nicolee's listing of those points is absolutely accurate. And I really can't believe that people who go to the grocery store and see all these prices up by 20 to 40% are going to be convinced by the fact that now the economy is just great, instead of just seeing it as a way to throw money into the economy for a short-term boost, which will eventually add more to inflation. I think she's absolutely right, and I think this is really going to be the comeuppance of Joe Biden and his gang. And I really have little doubt that Donald Trump is going to win this election.
You said that,
Richard.
Rick, but let's not.
Richard.
All right, go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, so true point on some house staples. There's been overt price gouging, which Harris is going to take care of. She really is. But let me just say, to the single issue voters that say, hey, I vote my wallet, that's still a mistake to go for Trump for two reasons. One, he monkeyed around with the Federal Reserve last time, and that can definitely trash our economy if he does it again. And secondly, these tariffs, which are ridiculous. We're 6 years away from the 100-year anniversary of Smoot-Hawley. The tariffs didn't work then. They won't work now. The last time he tried this, China fought back and destroyed huge sections of our agricultural economy. There are farmers in Iowa that are sitting on their couch with broken farms because of Trump.
So I would have to argue that any candidate for president of the United States who argues for Marxist, communist price controls on food should be singularly disqualified on that issue alone for being president of the United States of America, unless we would like to starve ourselves like every other country that has tried this. It is insane that we have a major party candidate running on starving Americans. So no, I don't want Kamala Harris's price controls on food. She can't even pronounce the economic term right. She called it price gauging because she doesn't even know the term is gouging because she is so economically illiterate. So I would like to feed myself and my family, please.
And Sherry,
But the government, but we have to have some
Hold it.
controls and policies as relates to the inflation and what's happening with food gouging through corporations. For me,
Which has all been
the
caused
middle
by
class-
Joe Biden and Kamala Harris's
it,
policies
Nicolee.
over the past
but
4
for
years.
me, the middle class under the Republican Party and under the Democratic Party, that's why, as a Democrat, we've got to get better control. The middle class are the families that are strangled and are struggling the most, and no one at either party is really focused on that. And that's a huge issue. I mean, we're feeling the bite of everything across the board, on energy, on food, on everything, on medical.
Right, and,
I mean,
that is
it's
why.
unbelievable.
Sheila,
Right, and that is
Richard,
why Republicans are going to be
Hold on a
successful. It's the
second.
first time in my lifetime Republicans have actually taken a majority with registration across the country, and it's because people feel that Republicans are the people best suited to handle
Nick.
these economic
Richard.
issues.
Quick, Chris, be brief, and then to Rick, and then we have to break.
I sure will. We have to remember the undercurrent of social issues as well. And I think that's part of the reason for the huge women turnout. 1 in 3 women in this country lives under a Trump abortion ban. And at the end of the day, reproductive rights is going to play a big issue in this campaign. We have an advocate for women's rights going up against the guy who killed Roe v. Wade, a young, vibrant candidate versus an old guy who's losing his head, and a prosecutor going up against a convicted felon. I think it's going to be a victory for Harris. She's going to hold the 3-state blue wall on Tuesday.
All
Well,
right, Rick.
just finally, first of all, it's not a Trump abortion ban. You're talking about the Supreme Court. But secondly, the major contradiction in this
We
election
appointed those two.
is that Kamala Harris continues to say, look to me for change. And the Republicans keep saying, well, if you want to change, you've had 4 years to do it. And she has no answer for that.
All right,
No.
here's what we're going to do. Hold on. We're going to stop for a moment. We're going to talk more about both campaigns. But first, here is the guy who always wins every election. Please welcome to Square Off, the voice of this program, Howard Mallison.
Every election, I win them all. You know, it amazes me how crazy some people drive on these high-speed roads today, weaving in and out of lanes. It's no wonder there's so many accidents. But leading-edge auto body and mechanical repair want you to know that the insurance companies cannot tell you where to take your car. Check out their reviews on Yelp and their 5-star reviews on Google. Leading Edge works on all makes and models and offers free pickup and delivery anywhere in the Baltimore area. So give them a call at 410-433-6433 or visit them at 5807 Falls Road in the heart of Mountain Washington. They make your car look and run like new again.
That is
and you
true.
know, without a doubt, Baltimore is one of the best, if not the best, diner towns in the country. And the most popular and award-winning of them all are the Double T diners. TT means totally terrific. For breakfast, lunch, or dinner, the Double T menu offers you so many choices you're going to want to order everything. And that's why everything is delish. Plus, you'll have to save room for dessert. Their desserts are phenomenal. With locations on Route 40 West, Perry Hall, White Marsh, Annapolis, Pasadena, and the EC Diner and in the Ellicott City. Plus, Monday nights are lobster night at By the Docks in Middle River, all part of the Double T family. Back to you, Richard.
Leading Edge Auto Body, the very best. They just fixed my car. I actually paid for it. So go see Jeff Siegel. All right, Kamala Harris. She drew a crowd estimated by police of more than 75,000 supporters to the exact grassy ellipse near the White House, where in 2021, then President Trump urged a large crowd of his supporters to march to the Capitol. We all know what happened that January 6th. Kamala Harris telling her crowd if he were elected on day one, he'll be sitting in the Oval Office working on his enemies list. If I am elected, she said, which I fully expect to be, I will be working on behalf of the American people on my to-do list. Sheila, we'll call on you first.
I agree with that statement. You know, unfortunately, some people who are in public office or who want to be in public office have an enemy list. I think that's the worst thing that you can do. You need to, whoever wins, people need to come together, shake hands. I know that I'm an idealistic person in that respect, and say, how can we put this aside and work for the betterment of this country? You know, how do we move this country forward?
Richard,
Chris.
I agree with what you just said, and Sheila has a great history of bringing different parts of the city together for success. Freedom is not free. Democracy depends on honor, respect, tradition, and decency. And those are things that Donald Trump just does not have. He is a small, vindictive person who will spend 4 years getting payback. And one of the scariest things I can think of is to see Jeffrey Clark as the Attorney General of the United States. And that is very viable. And let me just add one more thing. It is a Trump abortion ban because Coney Barrett, Kavanaugh, and Gorsuch all promised Trump privately that they would overturn Roe v. Wade, even though all three said under oath in front of the Senate Judiciary Committee that it's well-settled law and they would never overturn it.
Good point. Rick Vatz.
Well, I'm glad Chris knows what they talked about in private. I'll yield to his knowledge of that. But let me just say,
you can read the Federalist Society papers, Rick. The Federalist Society
Chris.
Admitted that. Sorry.
Let me just say a couple things. First of all, the continued accusations against Trump that he has an enemies list. He's never said he has an enemies list. This is made up out of whole cloth by the Democrats. Secondly, I am not a Trump lover. Some of the unbelievable errors that have been made in this campaign by both Harris and Trump are unbelievable. Harris never avoiding an interview with Joe Rogan, not showing up at the Correspondents' Dinner. Trump, the biggest mistake of the entire campaign, no contact with Nikki Haley, who is a major source of Republican support. I mean, some of the stupid stuff that has gone on with both campaigns, neither deserves to be president, but one will be.
Rick, let me, ladies and gentlemen, let me just get this in. You say that Trump does not have an enemies list. I just want to say that on Thursday this past week, Trump attacked Liz Cheney, telling Tucker Carlson that, quote, let's put her with a rifle standing there with a 9 barrels shooting at her. Let's see how she feels about that. Anyway, Nicolee, I saw you reacting. Your lips were pursing. What do you want to say?
I think one of the errors of this campaign, by the Democrats specifically has been just the kind of evil vitriol that has been the standard since the Chicago Convention, where Oprah declared there would be joy. Instead, you actually, if there's tape you actually want to quote specifically, it was Joe Biden saying he would use the military to go after the other side of the aisle. Stuff like that's very scary. And unlike accusations that's coming from the Republican side, there's actually tape of our Democrat leadership saying that. And I don't want to live in a country where we don't have two viable parties. I would prefer there were two parties who were could each offer visions for actual freedom versus the Democrats who literally slid Kamala in without a single vote to the nomination. That is not the way democracy or our constitutional republic is set up to work. But furthermore, another critical error has been there are times when the other side does something well, just say, touche, good job, and make it fun, right? The ultimate question in these presidential elections is always, okay, which president would you like to hang out with? Which person? And, when Donald Trump is working the fry cooker at McDonald's, say, touche, good job. That was a wise move.
He didn't have a net on his head. He didn't have on plastic gloves.
Oh, that's a big point.
And that's questionable, with how they allowed him to work, where the regular workers, you got to have your head covered. You have to have on gloves. Cleanliness is important. I mean, even if you're going to do it for show.
He broke the French fry rule.
He broke the French fry rule. He broke the sanitary rule.
I'm telling you, that will be the most iconic moment in the history books of the 24 campaign.
Maybe
and instead of people having fun with it, like Trump did, which Americans saw and had fun with it too, Democrats, you're just making yourself look bad by being so miserable.
Richard, Trump's big mouth is what's going to do him in. He was mansplaining again recently. He called himself the protector of women, whether women like it or not. Whether women like it or not was his quote. And he emphasized those horrible words. That is condescending, that is insulting, and that is belittling to women.
On.
Excuse me.
About
it is condescending,
not killing American women. That the
so
president's
women
commander chief, their job is to make sure we don't get killed by people who shouldn't be in the country.
Win this election on
Nicolee,
Tuesday.
keep quiet for a moment, please. Let Chris finish, then you can rebut if you'd like. But don't.
I was just going to say that's my opinion. Why the women are going to save democracy from Donald Trump and his autocracy goals.
Go ahead, Chris. Go ahead, Nick.
So some examples of people who are just sick of being taken for granted by the Democrat Party. For example, look at that NAACP poll where only 49% of Black males under 50 are supporting Harris. That's for a reason they've been abandoned by the Democrat Party. Or you can talk to all the Muslim leadership from around America that I've been working with this week that is sick of Joe Biden throwing them under the bus and for the first time is voting for a Republican presidential candidate because they have been so abandoned by the Democrat Party. Look at the Jewish population. Donald Trump is the only one who delivered for Jews. He actually moved our embassy to Jerusalem and ensured the safest, most peaceful Middle East when he was president. So I think people are looking for peace and stability in addition to a president who actually cares that they can afford groceries and cares that our country is secure.
Richard, peace and stability is not achieved by getting rid of NATO. And one of the most powerful young Black men under the age of 35, LeBron James, just came out this morning in support of Harris. So that's going to
and there's a real
Democrats. That's not new. He always does.
There's a real balance between African American men who support him and who are also in support of Harris. And I think that the bottom line is women are going to make the difference in this campaign. And I think in some ways, in people's egos, particularly African American males, some. I think they have a problem with strong Black women.
Let me ask you this.
Rick, let me put you on hold, Rick. Because of time, although we're allowed to go a little longer than usual. We're going to take a break because when we come back, I'm going to ask each of you for whom you are going to vote if you'd like to let us know. That, not that we couldn't guess. Here again's Howard Mallison. Howard?
Thank you, Rich. You know, the law firm of Barry Glazer specializes in personal injury, medical malpractice, and nursing home neglect. His creative TV commercials have made him very recognizable, so much so that you can walk up to him down the street. People come up to him all the time, thanking him for telling it like it is. Barry and his team have an in-house doctor and a nurse on staff. In fact, you should call Barry before you call the insurance company. His clients will tell you that Barry gets you more compensation than you ever expected. He's that good. Give the law firm of Barry Glazer a call at 410-547-8568 and let him know you heard about him on Square Off. You know, with baseball over now and the Ravens' quest for a Super Bowl, what better way to watch games than going to Pappas Sports Bar and Restaurant? You can dine in the sports bar surrounded by more big screen TVs than you can imagine, or you can have a gourmet meal in the dining room section of Pappas. Either way, you can enjoy the award-winning Pappas crab cake, the imperial crab, and much, much more. Plus,
Yummy.
they ship their crab cakes all over the country. And yes, Oprah gets her crab cakes from Pappas shipped to her all the time.
Very lucky.
Pappas, at Pappas, you'll enjoy a dining experience second to none. Tell them Richard sent you for the fab cake. Back to you, Rich.
Delicious. All right, look, this is going to be the final round. And Rick, you had something you wanted to add to the last point. So for whom are you voting, Rick, and why? But you only get a minute
Well,
or
the point
so.
I was going to add at the last moment was the condescension to African-American voters by Obama and others. It's just been despicable. But I'll tell you for whom I'm going to vote. For the first time, I'm going to vote reluctantly for Trump. And my issues are the border, the economy, inflation, Israel, on which all major issues, Trump comes out ahead. His personal peccadillos offend me. I don't like it. I don't like him personally, but I'm going to vote for him.
All right. Thank you, Professor Vatz. Chris Kennedy, what would you like?
Trump killed the Langford border deal, which I think is interesting in February, but I'm going to vote for Harris. I'm also going to vote for Brooks, who I think is going to win by at least 12 points over Hogan, maybe as much as 20. I think the Senate is going to be won by the Republicans. They're getting one seat from West Virginia, and I think they're going to flip either Ohio or more likely Montana, and they're going to have a 1 or 2 seat majority. And I think the Democrats are going to flip the House because there's about 10 seats that are up for grabs in blue California and blue New York that are leaning Democrats. So Hakeem Jeffries will be our next speaker. Those are my predictions.
Nicolee, Ambrose, let me ask you this. Are you really voting for Kamala Harris?
Absolutely not. I really truly believe she should be disqualified from being a major party candidate. I find so much of this Democrat campaign offensive, from not going through any of the right processes to become a major party nominee, to her condescension and elitism towards all Americans. Furthermore, we just had a revised jobs report from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. We've just lost another 28,000 jobs. 46,000 manufacturing jobs were lost, and over 85,000 in the past 6 months. So this has just been a train wreck. It's a very unique experience here that we have, 2 candidates with 4 years each. And I'm voting for my son to be able to get a job when he graduates from college and someday build his own American dream and being able to buy a house, build a family, all that great stuff that we want for our children.
Former Mayor Sheila Dixon.
So, Nicolee, then that's why you should be voting for Harris, so that your son can be able to afford a home and be able to get, for first homeowners, that assistance that is definitely needed. My daughter and son-in-law just moved back here from Baltimore, from New York, and I'm looking forward to them being able to buy their home. I'm going to vote for Harris. Again, I have really mixed emotions on both parties and both sides. I prayed, Chris, that we do have control of the House and the Senate, Because if we don't, we're going to have a lame duck president who's going to do executive orders, which I hope does not happen. And this next 4 years is going to be crucial. And that's why people have not voted. They need to get out and vote.
I would like to let everyone know that our Square Off audience, with you folks who are watching right now, has really grown by the thousands, and we're very excited about it. We have been on the air in Baltimore one way or the other. We're now in our 41st year, and I'm only 52 years old. We want you to vote early if you can on election day. Get it done. Do it for this country. And thank you all. Thank you, Professor Vatz. Thank you, Attorney Kennedy. Thank you, our GOP committee woman, Nicolee Ambrose, and former Baltimore Mayor Sheila Dixon. Next week at this time, our third and final Square Off election special. Until then, I'm Richard Sher. See you next time when once again we square off. Everybody wave goodbye. Come on, wave goodbye. Bye-bye.